All right, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Wayne Scott. Wayne is the owner of What's in Your Tank. It's an aquarium store in Florida. And Wayne has an incredible story for us today. He is a military veteran who was wounded in Iraq, and he's going to be talking to us about his transition from the military to aquarium trade, and now the owner of his own store. So let's welcome Wayne.
Thanks a lot. Hello, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. As he explained, my name is Wayne Scott. I'm a severely injured vet, and we're going to talk about, sorry. Today I'm going to talk about how the hobby saved my life and how it transitioned to a profession. I've been in a hobby for about 9 years. I started off with a 125, and I'm currently up to a 500-gallon tank. And recently I became the co-owner operator for the store What's in Your Tank. I joined the Army in 1982. Now, this is a weird story because I didn't join the Army like most people join the Army. It was my senior year in high school, and it was prom time, and I needed to make some money because I wanted to attend my school prom. So I'm looking into one ad, and I see, do you want to work on computers? Call this number, which was my goal. So I go and call the number, and the guy answers the phone, and he arranges an interview for like 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Okay, I'm 17 years old, it don't matter to me, I got an interview. So I go there, and my father drops me off, and I walk up to the building, and I notice it's the government building. And I see the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines. So I go inside, and I see these guys working on computers in civilian clothes. So I'm like, yes, I got my job. This is cool, I'm gonna have money for the prom. And the guy makes me take the ASVAB test, and I blow it away, and he goes, we're gonna have to send you to Cleveland. And I'm like, what I gotta go to Cleveland for? He said, well, we want you to take you the big test and then make sure everything's okay before we hire you. Okay, so I'm good there. They go there, they get me fat. I'm eating donuts and orange juice, and I'm watching these videos and, showing Army stuff, and this drill sergeant like in this guy's face this far. So I'm like, yeah, I can deal with that, but I'm still thinking I'm gonna be a computer guy. So I go to the MEP station, take the test, blow it out the door, and I'll go up to a guy, to the recruiter, and it's like, yeah, I want to work on computers. He goes, yeah, you can do this job right here. He signs me in. He goes, I need you to wait in this big glass room. So I go in the big glass room, and there's like 30 other dudes in there. So I'm sitting there, I'm minding my own business, and then all of a sudden, a guy comes in and says, when this officer comes in, we want you to stand up in a position of attention and just follow what he says. Okay, I can do that too. So I'm sitting there, the guy comes in, we stand up, and he introduces himself, and he goes, raise your right hand. So I raise my right hand. I go through the whole spiel and everything, and then I figured like, okay, I'm done. They escort us out, and then the guy who dropped me off picks me up, and we're driving home. He goes, so what does it feel like to be in the Army? And I was like, I'm in the Army? He goes, yeah, you raised your right hand, right? I was like, yeah. He's like, you went through the whole motion? I said, yeah. He's like, yeah, you're in the Army. I was like, oh, crap. So once a weekend, I'm going there, and I thought I'm going to work on this computer and start getting paid. No, they're teaching me how to march and how to do all this stuff. So long story short, that's how I got into the Army. I wasn't expecting it. It just happened. It's over with. I did it. So I did I was 72 Echo, which at the time was a telecommunications center operator, and they've changed the name now because it's been a while. We're talking about 36 years ago that I was in. And I didn't see my first tour of duty until I went to Iraq. And that happened on a humbug too, because I was actually out and I was doing some work at a reserve station. So I'm sitting there and I look at my phone and I notice I had a phone call. This was November 12th, I remember this day directly. And it was like 9 o'clock in the morning, I answered the phone. I called the guy back and I said, somebody called me, I'm returning the call. He's like, yes, this is Major such and such and such. He's like, who am I speaking with? I said, oh no, you called me. He said, is this Sergeant Scott? And I was like, oh, whoa, I'm sorry, I'm not a sergeant anymore. I haven't been in the Army for some time. He's like, oh yeah, we recalled you on your old MOS and your secret clearance. We need you to report to our unit on Tuesday. I said, Tuesday next week or Tuesday next month? He's like, Tuesday in 3 days. So my life changed like from that point on. I had to get out my lease in my hotel. I was at the time, at my apartment complex. I was working for the post office. I had to turn in that paperwork. So off I am to training for Iraq. Then I got there the 1st of March. First day there, while we were spending the night, suicide bomber drove straight up to the gate and exploded. First night out. Later on, the first mission I went on, they put a dog in the middle of the road, and they know Americans are sympathetic to animals and everything, and this little kid told us like this, which means there's a bomb in the dog. So we had to pull over waiting for EOD. And while we're waiting there, I'm at the truck and I'm in charge of convoy, so we have to set up a position. And I started hearing this ting, 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 ting. And I'm like, what is this noise? And next you know, here was an ambush from both sides hitting us. So I got wounded in June 2004. We was coming back off a mission, and I was in the back of the gun truck and drove past a roadside bomb, and it detonated, and basically I was Superman for like 3 seconds. I hit the back of the truck and withered down, and I didn't know how severe my injury was until I had to take a shower that night and I couldn't move my arm. So I told my supervisor, and I had my soldiers there, and I said, hey man, there's a problem here. We got to fix this. So I ended up staying there another 6 weeks. They modified my weapon for me so I can still go on missions because I didn't want to leave my soldiers, and I didn't want to show no fear because it was a mission. Everything's a mission. So we completed that. I ended up getting medevaced in July, and it was time for promotion, and I had to take a PT test in the desert. And it's like, I can't take a PT test, especially, I got one arm. So you got to do it or it's going to be some UCMJ action. So 6 o'clock in the morning, go ready, take a PT test, get in the push-up position. As soon as I went down, pop, lost feeling from the neck down. So they had to medevac me from there. This is just a slide of our after-action reports, how we had to go through every day in the morning before we went on the mission and after we went on the mission. I had 16 soldiers under me at the time before my accident. So once I got medevaced, I went to Landstuhl in Germany. They evaluated me, and as soon as they saw my x-rays, they was like, okay, we got to ship you to the States. So they put me on a commercial flight all the way to Walter Reed Hospital, old Walter Reed Hospital in Washington, D.C. The first surgery they did was a C3 to T3, so I'm gonna fast forward this a little. And that was done in early August. I went home on convalescent. I sound like I'm pregnant, I'm sorry. I went home on leave, and I came back, and I was, I thought everything was normal, but the doctors was like, why is your head leaning like this? And I was like, I don't know, I thought everything was cool. So they went and did an x-ray. So this was in October when they had to do the second x-ray, a second surgery. And this one took longer than expected, and that's what my neck looks like now. I kind of call myself the Walmart $6 million man. They gave me the parts, but not the technology. So my main purpose now is to go through the airport and set off alarms. I got into the hobby once they medically retired me out of the Army. So I had a conversation with my doctor, and he basically was like, here, you got two choices, because I'm originally from Ohio. He's like, you don't want to go to Ohio with this type of surgery. You can either A, go to Arizona, or B, move to Florida. So I was like, well, I'm not going to Arizona. I already had enough desert in Iraq. I don't want to go back to the desert. So in 2004, I moved down to Florida, and that's basically where my life changed. I was told I wasn't going to be able to work anymore. And more worse, I didn't have my Army family with me. And I was there, you know, it was not good. I had nobody I knew. I was in a new area, and that's when the depression started settling in, and the drug abuse. When I was in DC, while I was there, you know, the prescriptions they gave me, because every time I had to go in for some kind of pain, it was like, oh, here, take this, or here, take this. When I moved to Florida, and I was on Oxycontin, hydrocodone, Valium, the 8-hour morphine pill, and Percocet. And I was taking those at least 4 to 5 times a day. There was days I wouldn't even leave my condo because I just didn't want to go outside. And when I did go outside, people was asking me about my surgery on the neck, and I didn't feel confident about it. So I would stay in the condo for like 2 weeks at a time, not even leaving, going outside, keep the lights off. And I had a mailman who was a prior vet. And he would come and check on me because my mail would stack up about that high in the mailbox, because I wouldn't even go after it. I just didn't want to go outside. So I went and put myself in rehab. I went through the rehab, and that's when I found out that the medication I was on, I was only supposed to be on it for 2 to 3 months. And I had been on it for 2 years while I was in the hospital. So once I got out of that, I went to take my daughter home one day in Georgia. And I came back and something was wrong with my car, so I went to go and check the fuse box. Next thing I remember, somebody was carrying me into my condo. I had totally passed out. Didn't know what was going on. So I fell asleep, and then one of the guys who helped me, his wife was a nurse. So I went to walk over there to see how she was, you know, to see what was going on, because I was having these symptoms, because I felt like I ran a mile in like 1 minute. And when I walked up the stairs and knocked on the door, the first thing she said, call 911. And the guy was like, no, he's okay. And then when I woke up, I was in an ambulance being rushed to the hospital. Found out that I had blood clots, and they had gotten into my chest and caused me to have a minor heart attack. So I was in the hospital for about a week or 2, and they started giving me warfarin, and I was injecting myself twice a day. Well, again, I was on that stuff for a year, and a year to the date, I started having mini strokes. Found out that my blood was so thin that it was not making it up to my brain. So I had to go through that. So once I got out of there, I was reading an article or something came over the internet where they was taking aquariums and putting them in assisted living homes, and senior citizens that had Alzheimer's or dementia. And my mom is in stage 4 dementia right now. And they also were putting them in homes with kids that had ADHD and autism, and I have a nephew who's totally autistic. So I was like, well, let me see how this can work for me, because at that time I went from like taking 12 different type of pills a day to, after rehab, I was down to like maybe 6. So I did some research for like 4 or 5 months, and then I set up my first tank, June 1st, 2009. I call this my basic training tank. This is where I had to learn about the hobby, the ins and outs, the cycling, and I should be in jail right now because I killed so many fish. In that first tank, it was ridiculous. I mean, I should be put under the jail. But when I started getting into the fish tanks, that's when my body started changing. Because before, I was always concentrating on the pain. It was like, you know, I was thinking in the past, like, okay, I'm going through this, I'm going through this. Once I got into in my first tank, I started having the good pain. To me, the good pain was because I was carrying 12 5-gallon buckets of salt water, doing water changes and doing them individually like that instead of all at once. So that's when I started building a little confidence in myself, and I wasn't thinking like, what's my next move? One thing I want to say, I'm saying this, I'm probably going to say it twice. PTSD, there's a cure, but this is my opinion for the cure. When I said I was having the good pain, I wasn't thinking about the past anymore. That's what, when you go through PTSD, if you know anybody like that, they always think about the past. You got to get them out that past and put them in the future. And that's what this did for me. And it got to the point where I wasn't even taking hardly any of my medication because, I was feeling good about myself, and at this time I was slowly feeling confident about myself. So when anybody was asking me about my scar, I would explain it more before when I would just shy away and just lock myself in a room and didn't want nobody to be bothered with me. So that's a picture of my 125. When I first started it, I didn't know that you want your fish load to be lower than your bio load. And I was just stocking that thing up like every 3 or 4 days. If I saw something, I bought it. It didn't matter. People, and when you go to some local fish stores, if you say, hey, I got this and I want to buy this, they're going to sell it to you instead of putting me in pause and say, hey, wait a minute, why don't you let your tank finish before you get to that? So about a year later, I caught a deal and got me a 225. I call this my AIT tank. This is when I was actually learning about reefing, what corals needed, what kind of lighting they needed. At this time, this is when I met my new Army family, which was my local reef club. My business partner, I met her at a local fish store while I was researching how to have a saltwater tank, and she introduced me to her local fish club, and I started meeting everybody, and then we became a family. So now I feel more confident about myself because I have my Army family with me. So at that time, I also started getting involved, and I became vice president of the club, and now I'm looking for my next mission. And so about a year later, this is the 225 at the time, but my new mission was my new tank as of now, my 500. And I call that my permanent party tank because now I'm into reefing. Now it's time to define my profession, and I consider that a profession at the time. So that's me. I just want to say I am reef safe. And that's currently what it is now. Now, since I've been with the family and everything, and they are my family, I became president, and things have been getting good for me. I'm not as dependent on the medication as much. Now, do I still go through the motions? Yes, I still go through the motions. But a lot of it has just been, what can I do to step myself up? So I was out of town visiting my mom in her facility, and my business called me, and she was like, hey, how you feel about opening a store? And I was like, God. I was enjoying retirement at the time, so, really enjoying retirement. Before, I was struggling with it because I didn't know what to do with myself because I had no Army, I had no job or anything like that. So I called my wife, and I called my brother and said, hey, I got this offer. They want me to operate a local fish store. And she's like, what's the deal? I said, okay, this is the parameters, da-da-da-da. They're like, well, it's on you, what you want to do. So when I opened the store, it used to be a hair salon, and I had to modify it. So these are before and afters of what the store looked like before and after. I have freshwater, saltwater, and corals in the store, and the funny part about this is being in the saltwater hobby, I thought that was going to be my main money maker, and I'm totally wrong. But I make all my money on salt, freshwater. The trick is kind of converting them over to saltwater, which was an easy transition because everybody was under impression that saltwater was hard to take care of, or you got to put this much money, and I thought it was expensive. And you got to be honest with them and say, yeah, the initial cost is going to get you, but once you set and keep going, everything rolls into play. So that's what the store looked like on the outside. And that is Sue Engel. She's my business partner. And we've been open since March 11th, 2017. Now, why did I choose to operate and become part owner of a local fish store? It's all about that next mission. I had to find something that was going to keep me motivated. I had to find something that was not going to set me back and think about how I was when I first moved here. So it's all about helping others. It's always about giving back. It's something about, I love just, I've given away a lot of stuff to help people, to help proceed in their hobby, even with veterans. Some veterans, depending on who they were, I had to train them to, like, you can't look at your tank this way, you have to look at it like this way, because when I first opened my first tank, and if something died, I would like panic. I was like, oh my God, I just killed this fish, what did I do? So now it's more like, okay, yes, this fish died, what can you do to prevent the next fish from dying, or what you need to do to move forward? And that's what I was explaining before with PTSD. It's not only with Army people, you got first line, the first line people like police officers, EMTs, there's, battered women, battered men, you got children, that's my suggestion, don't keep them in the past. They're always gonna look at that. Bring them out to the future so they don't have to think of all that. Give them a mission. And for me, this was a mission. I've been to a couple schools and did a talk there. I've sponsored a couple schools, and they have in their, when they do what they call a fair, some kind of fair. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm sorry. Science fair, yeah. And I even had schools come and do a tour at the store and show them what I go through and the process of how to operate a local fish store, and then also help them how to set up a tank and the procedures on how to run a tank, and learning the basics. I teach everybody the basics. Then you adjust them to your system, because everybody's tank is different, just like everybody's lives are different, just like everybody's PTSD is different, This is one of the middle schools I sponsored, took first place in the Florida State Fair. And I also sponsored 2 high schools. So anytime they need water, fish, or anything to stock their tanks, I provide it for them just to help them keep going, and then I also help solve their problems. If they have anything, they can always contact me. Okay, this is my shameless plug. So I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. So if you want to join the page, or if you have any questions, or you want to get in contact with me, you just leave a message right there. I'm looking at about 6 months to a year to start shipping. I have to find the right person to do the shipping, because it's about keeping the LFS, because we're starting to lose a lot of LFSs, especially in my category, which we are called a mom and pop store. A lot of those are not keeping up with the times, and it just hurts to see somebody close like that. And I also have a YouTube channel. But those are mostly updates on my tanks and spotlights on different types of equipment that I use to run my tank. And I also have an Instagram page. So this concludes the end of my presentation. I want to thank MACNA for allowing me to speak. I want to thank the local Reef Club. And if anybody has any questions, please ask.